Welcome to the Bird and Verdict Sports Show. I'm your host, Jacob Verdict, joined by Jeremiah Gray, G Sports, back at it again, running it back. Appreciate you coming by, man.
Anytime, man, anytime.
Always a blessing. So I seen you at spring practice. I'm pulling in. I'm ready to get some footage up, the highlight videos we've been doing. I see you walking in the crosswalk. I'm like, oh, what you doing over here? What's going on?
Man, came to check out practice. I think this is their fourth practice of the spring. So I finally got a chance to come by and kind of see what the offense was looking like. Wanted to see what the defense was looking like, see how Blake Baker had that defense kind of getting acclimated to his system. Bo Davis coaching up the D-line. So I just wanted to see how things was coming along, and I walked away from practice pretty impressed with just how things looked in terms versus how it looked last spring around this time.
Exactly, especially on the defensive side of things. Like Corey Raymond comes in, has the DBs doing the most crazy drills I've ever seen. Towels on the hands, all kind of angle tackling drills, very hard on them. I like that type of coaching. I kind of referenced Coach Butler from Terrebonne with that type of stuff. Like with this position, the defensive back position, you got to be hard on them because they're under so much pressure. You know what I mean? I feel like a coach like Corey Raymond is the perfect turning point that LSU needs. And with what I've seen in the DB room, like even from guys like Sage Ryan, multiple interceptions, he's definitely looking like he's turning the corner, ignoring the noise, like developing a brand. You got Major Burns in a potential NFL draft year. And even guys like P.J. Woodland, really young guy, but he could develop, turn into something. Ashton Stamps, really promising. Jordan Gilbert has transitioned very well. J.K. Johnson will finally get to play. What do you think about the DB room, DBU, defense as a whole? What did you see today, and what do you think, the transition's going to look like? Will it be smooth? Will it be instant? Like, what's your take?
It's going to be a process. A lot of these guys are not Corey Raymond's guys, so they got to get used to on how he do things, his technique and what he expects, and eye discipline. He's very, very technical in how he goes about coaching the position. So it's going to be a while, man. I think, as they transition into fall camp, they'll go in expecting and knowing what he wants and his expectations in that room. But to jump off today for me was Colin Jackson, the freshman safety from Zachary. He made multiple plays today through 7-on-7 and 1-on-1s in the team period, flying around. You could tell the coaching staff is really gravitating toward him and understanding that his skill set is very, very unique. I think he's a safety that can play over the top and play deep thirds and have a lot of range. And he's somebody you could roll down and make tackles in the box and guard receivers in the slot. So I was really, really impressed with Colin Jackson. You could tell he's playing with a lot of confidence. I think he's going to be somebody that Tiger fans going to get familiar with real, real soon. P.J. Woodland, the early enrollee from Mississippi, his athleticism jumped off the charts to me today. Doesn't have the typical length that Corey Raymond usually has in that DB room at corner, but I could see him playing a lot this year as a true freshman, man. And then coming in as an early enrollee is definitely going to help him. It's going to build his confidence of going into fall camp, and when the season comes, I can see him being ready. Ashton Stamps, he showed some flashes today. Jordan Gilbert as well. But I just think that Corey Raymond is going to take a little while for them to get used to how he does things, and hopefully by the time they play that game against USC, they playing with a lot of confidence. But I think, I go back to the segment we had a few months ago after the season. Well, I think it was like right before the season ended. The key going to be is getting that pass rush. And I think what Deshaun Womack showed today in spring practice, unbelievable motor in team period. I mean, he kept getting to the quarterback time and time again. He plays with a lot of fire, a lot of passion. I could very well see him leading LSU in sacks this year. So, but Blake definitely has that team. They had the defense communicating. They playing with a lot of that edge. That every time they made a play, they was celebrating. He celebrating with them. So, and that was something you didn't really see too much last year, man. It was kind of quiet on that side of the ball. Right now, Blake has those guys flying around, and I see him playing with a lot of confidence.
And mentioning about Blake, like the activity level that, comparing it to previous defensive staffs, one thing that jumped out to me, I would say, the cleats. This dude wears cleats during practice. Like, what? He's in there. He's like, nah, I'm not just going to tell you what to do. I'm going to get in. I'm going to get on the bags. I'm going to show you the footwork. I'm going to walk you through this whole entire process. I'm alongside it with you. Like that, I think, is how you get a team to buy in around you. Like this Blake Baker, I'm not even going to call it an experiment. Let's call it the Blake Baker era. This is starting off crazy. And we were kind of talking about the potential for someone like Blake Baker because it was a perfect fit. I mean, he's successful at LA Tech. He's successful at Mizzou. of course, Arkansas State, and of course, very strong Louisiana ties. But being able to see a team like LSU with the offensive production go from 13th, 12th, right on the brink of what this college football playoff limit will be this year, it makes you wonder, man, are they really that far? Brian Kelly, his historic third year, I'm not going to say third year mark is his best year, but Notre Dame goes to the BCS National Championship. Cincinnati goes undefeated. Central Michigan and Grand Valley State, I believe, both had double-digit win seasons in the third year. LSU's third year, that's where he said this is when it's going to happen. Last year at SEC Media Days, he was like, we've got some holes to fix. We got some, I think he said leaky air in a tire. That's the right analogy he used. And you know what? I think the tire could have potentially got patched. Matter of fact, they might have just bought a whole new set. So I feel like with the 12-man playoff, with the abolishment of SEC divisions, you might not have to be the best in the West. You could potentially have 2 SEC West teams battling it out. So I think the future looks very, very bright. And on the offensive side, just to kind of switch things around, I think that the offense is very trimmed in Nussmeier. We were talking about Aaron Anderson, and I've been looking at him through highlights, through the spring practices, and I thought that was the clear-cut wide receiver 3. Because, of course, you got Kyron Lacy and Chris Hilton locking down 1 and 2. Both are going to have great years. Kyron has got the chip on the shoulder. Plus, how could you expect someone like Kyron to go through a career like this, hang around Malik Neighbors, hang around Brian Thomas, Jaden Daniels, be able to train with them, be able to pick their brains, and not necessarily mold to that, but it's the inspiration. It's the whole you are what you're around. You are who you surround yourself with. Chris Hilton, very, very vertically threatening receiver. He's so much faster than most cornerbacks. And then in games against Wisconsin, he can go grab a 40-yarder and just somehow, some way make it work. Aaron Anderson, you said a lot of people don't really know about him because of the injuries and just a lot of different hiccups, and people that aren't really keeping up with LSU football, so to speak, won't be able to have an Aaron Anderson jump off of the roster at them. And you saw people in the comments saying, he might transfer. He might not get his opportunity because of guys like C.J. Daniels, guys like Kyle Parker. I don't know. I think he's fighting. I think he's busting his tail. And I think the past 2-3 times I've seen him, he's been with the ones. He's been with wide receiver 3 spot. He's a good slot spot with the size, with the speed. I feel like that's a player that more than likely is going to have the bigger season. Could be wrong, but that's my take. Who do you think on LSU football's team right now, from what you've seen, will have the biggest year? Could be offense or defense.
Offensively, I got to go with my guy, Kyron Lacy. The chip he's playing with, the confidence that he has, you can clearly see Coach Joe Sloan, the offensive coordinator, and the receiver coach, Cortez Hankton, they have nothing but faith in Kyron. They think he's the next first-round pick to come out of that wide receiver room. And today at practice, he showed it. I mean, contested catches, getting separation at the top of the route, it's blocking on the perimeter, leadership. I mean, you name it, he was doing it today. And so you see him taking that next step. You see him want to carry that legacy on as, one of the best receivers to come out of this next year's draft. Yeah, and that's what he wants to be. And then you talk about somebody like Chris Hilton, who's been kind of, you see some flash plays here and there last year, but I think this year you're going to see him and Kyron be that next 1-2 punch. 2 different type of receivers, but Chris has all the makeup to be, one of the best receivers in the conference and in the country. You just can't teach speed. He's been in college football for 3 years now, so I just think he has a lot of confidence. I think he's healthy. He's the healthiest he's ever been since he's been in college, in my mind. And then you talk about somebody like Aaron Anderson and C.J. Daniels. I think those 2 will be battling for that third spot. And don't forget about Kyle Parker. Aaron is the most dynamic of the 3 out of C.J. Daniels and Kyle Parker. It's just about being consistent with Aaron Anderson, man. If Aaron comes to work every day, focused, paying attention to the details, Aaron Anderson could be a receiver on that team that catches for 500 plus yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns, and have that momentum going into the following year once Chris Hilton and Kyron leaves. And then, like I say, C.J. Daniels and Kyle Parker, they're definitely going to help that receiver room. But and then don't forget about Mason Taylor and Pimpton, man. Pimpton made some plays today during the team period that shows you his freaky athleticism.
He's huge.
And so I think Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton and Frank Wilson and Brad Davis, I see them getting in the team meeting room as a staff saying, we got to figure out a way to get pimped in on the field and have some packages where we get the ball in his hand or get him matched up with a small DB or a safety that can't move as good as him, and he could be a matchup nightmare. So I can't wait to see how they're going to use Pimpton going forward. And then you talk about the offensive line, best in the country. I mean, Emory Jones, Will Campbell, 2 first-round picks. And I'm going to tell you somebody that caught my eye heavily today, Tyree Adams. Tyree Adams from St. Augustine High School in New Orleans. When he came in with the tools, I mean, he jumped off to me. Just his athleticism, his motor. I didn't realize how strong he was. I didn't realize he was just as big as a Will Campbell. And so I think Tyree Adams is the next best offensive lineman to come out of LSU, man, once Will Campbell and Emory, heads to the NFL draft. So that's a name that people need to really pay attention to going forward, man. I love the way Tyree Adams looked today. He really jumped off to me.
And it's so crazy because you got a coach like Brad Davis, and just talk about the transition in recruiting and to the pros as well. I mean, you got guys like Austin DeCallis, you said Will Campbell, Emory Jones. Then you even got Charles Turner this year, potentially Garrett Dellinger. It's like, especially 25 recruiting class, number 1 inside offensive tackle. Brad Davis can recruit with the best of them. He's been retained for so long. Coaching staff changes all over the place. He's the only consistent spot. And
Baton Rouge native.
It just speaks volumes to what he brings to the table because, he has the best offensive line in the country, by the way, for the past 2 years. Because I know last year Michigan, was it Washington or Michigan?
Michigan.
Okay, I don't want to step on the toes. I know Michigan had a great year. Shout out. I'm going to give them their flowers.
There you go. Good job.
I just think, man, this team and what they did offensively, especially when you look at the total yards and then the rushing ability, that's insane. The thing I've noticed in the highlights with Nussmeier and the new kind of tailored offense that they've done is the tight end implementation, because you see even guys like Mac Markaway getting inside. All these tight ends are going to be so beneficial because you could throw one in a run block scheme, in a pass block scheme, kind of burn some of the juice or a battery because you got so many guys to look at, or they can all split those reps. I think that combine the tight end skill with the offensive line, with the fact that Garrett Nussmeier is a very intelligent quarterback, also been in college football for years and years and years. Plus, Josh Williams is a huge vet. Caleb Jackson's insanely athletic. This offense is probably going to be top 5 guaranteed. I mean, you can't go from 1 and drop to 10 because of 2 or 3 departures, major departures. I'm not undermining Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, and Brian Thomas Jr., which we'll get to their draft stock later. I'm not undermining their efforts. They're definitely a huge part of why LSU was the number 1 offense last season. But I feel like the culture and the habits and the way that they prepare to develop, that's going to stay with LSU. The coaches are there. A lot of the pieces around them are still there. And you can't be on that team, in that room, in that environment, and not have it be intoxicating. You know what I mean? Success is very contagious, especially in football, especially in sports, when you got momentum and confidence. They're really missing one tiny piece of the puzzle. They were a national championship contending team if they had 2 or 3 little tune-up areas.
Think about it. You go 10-3 with how bad that defense was.
It's insane. And look at the losses, because the Ole Miss game, you score almost 50 points. That's a crazy game. Alabama, Jaden Daniels gets hurt. And look, even if you keep the Florida State loss, they went undefeated, won the ACC. Of course, Jordan Travis got hurt and it prevented them from going to the college football playoff. But the losses that they had were not crazy. And at the other 2, the Bama and the Ole Miss one was definitely a shot in the foot. And the Alabama one is just one of those situations when your starting quarterback goes down, it's hard to, carry on that momentum. I think for the first half, it was pretty competitive. Malik Neighbors had a very good catch, a very good touchdown. I thought, oh man, this could be, one big play away from having another upset. I think, things will kind of change this year though when Ken DeBoer comes to Tiger Stadium. Now LSU, Alabama, it might not be the same.
Right.
What you think about Nick Saban retiring? Did you get got with the April Fool's joke yesterday? Bruh, somebody, man, I don't know who it was.
I had a couple people hit me with some April Fool jokes. The reason why it didn't work on me is because one of my best friends, his birthday is on April Fool's. If it wasn't for that, I would have got for sure. For sure.
Man, I woke up and I saw breaking news, and this is an April Fool's joke. Nobody clipped this and go crazy, but they were saying Nick Saban was coming back and Kellen DeBoer was going to be the offensive coordinator, and I'm like, nah, it took me 2 minutes to just look through and be like, this is so fishy and weird, and why are you making this Tom Brady-esque decision?
Right.
But what do you think about Alabama, their future, how they're going to be able to potentially keep the dynasty going. Kale's a great coach because the Washington uprising was quick, and I mean, like their offense was pretty close to LSU's.
Offensively, they're gonna be great. I anticipate them scoring a lot of points this year. I think what the drop off is going to happen when you talk about a Bama-like team is in the trenches and how dominant they've been defensively since that Nick Saban era started. That's where you're going to see the difference at in the Bama team. I think they're going to score points, like I said, but they're just not going to be overwhelming on a D-line and O-line. They're not going to be overwhelming defensively where they just punish you with the physicality and the athleticism series after series, and they just wear you down, you know, as the fourth quarter comes and they still getting started and you kind of tapping out and start hitting the helmet, you know what I mean?
Throw the towel in.
Yeah, so I think that's what the difference is going to be, and he's going to figure out real quick that this is different than the Pac-12, right? You might be able to get away with scoring 35, 40 points and coming out with a victory and having a potential, I mean, having the ability to be able to still win conference. You score 30, 40 points in this league, but give up 30, 40 points, you'll be like LSU, 10-3, you know, 9-4. Go to a bowl, go to the LilCaesars.com bowl. That's just not the Bama way. That's not the Bama standard. So I think after year one, he'll figure out how he has to recruit. He'll figure out that he has to get really, really good in those trenches and have a defense that's going to be suffocating like Saban had over the last decade that we've seen. And if he does that, then the offense speaks for itself. So I can see them probably going like 7-4 this year, 8-3, somewhere around there, and just putting up a lot of points. Like it's gonna be a high-powered offense that's gonna be fun to watch for sure.
Because they got a weird little schedule. They're playing Georgia this year, and they're playing LSU. I don't know if they're playing Tennessee still.
I didn't look at their schedule.
I'm about to pull it up. So when I'm reacting to this, I'm kind of reacting to it through the lens of, like you're saying, it's going to be a lot different than Pac-12 football. It's going to be a lot more, I'm not going to say gritty, because like in the Pac-12, you do have bigger guys. You do have a lot of successful run teams. You do have teams that are competitive. You got USC, you got Oregon. You got guys that are going to give you a run for your money. Potentially, I'm not going to say Notre Dame's in the Pac-12, but Sam Hartman in those matchups are interesting. So, like, he had some moments, but it ain't nothing like a 4-game stretch when you're playing SEC West people back to back to back to back. You lose somebody gets sick, this, that, and the other. You know, an unfortunate ankle turn or whatever the case may be changes the whole dynamic. And now you're not in a situation where you can coast through it. Like, those matchups are not only grueling physically, but mentally. Mentally, it's a whole grind. But they're going to play versus Georgia, at Tennessee. They're obviously coming to LSU. I'll throw Mizzou in there too. They'll play at home against Mizzou. They're going to Oklahoma, and obviously they end the year off with the Iron Bowl. So the West Kentucky University one, I'll give them that. University of South Florida, I'll give them that. Wisconsin's interesting because it's like you don't want to write them off of how that game started against LSU, because I did write Wisconsin off really quick in the bowl game, and then we went down 14-0, and I'm like, oh, Lord, bro.
We all did.
Eat my words. And then Georgia, that's probably going to be their L. So now they're at, I'd say, 3-1. Vanderbilt might be able to get that one. South Carolina might be able to get that one. I don't think they get Tennessee at home. I don't think they get LSU. Mizzou will probably catch them. And they could potentially lose to Oklahoma and Auburn. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questionable games on Alabama's schedule. It's like, what kind of era are we in now? I would have looked at this schedule last year or 2, 3 years ago with Nick Saban and thought 2 losses. Thought LSU's getting beat. Georgia's probably getting beat. Tennessee's going to get beat. I don't think Oklahoma would worry them as much. But now, when you're in a growing pain phase, when you're in an environment where, like, you're feeling it out for the first time, you're kind of nervous, you're kind of unexperienced in that regard, I think it might potentially hurt Alabama, might potentially slow some things down, and the fans are going to be, so fun to witness. Alabama fans are going to have a hell of a time next season because they love to point fingers. They love to throw some shade, man. They're going to get a lot of shade thrown back at them.
It's definitely going to be a process. And I can't wait to see how the development of Jalen Milroe is going to look like, right? I want to see, can he get him to a Michael Penix kind of talent, if you will. And because Jalen Milroe as a passer last year was above average at best. And so I really want to see how he's going to look this coming season, man, and put himself in a position to be either a first or second round draft pick. Because right now, if he would have came out this year, he probably would have been a fifth, sixth round draft pick. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be interesting, man. I think this is the year that LSU has to capitalize. So you got to think about it. You know, Florida on the downslide right now.
Yep.
Right? Bama, new era. Saban's out of there. Right? You don't have to play Georgia. Who else in the SEC that you really fear like that? Ole Miss, maybe that's it. When I look at LSU schedule, Ole Miss is the only game I look at and say, okay, they got to be ready for that game. Sam Dark comes back. The receivers come back.
And they got Logan Diggs too, so that was like,
Right, but I think Logan Diggs is not going to be ready till like after the midway part in the season. I can't remember when Ole Miss played LSU, but you got to know that Ole Miss going to look just as good, if not better than they did last year. So that is the only game on LSU's schedule that I got circled that, look, they got to be ready to play that game. Every other game, man, I just think that LSU should be favored in my mind.
Thankfully, the Ole Miss game's at home.
Yeah.
If it was away, I would be like, oh, Lord, look what happened last year. I don't know what's going on. But you want to dial it back to the other home game, Harold Perkins throwing dart on the ground, standing over him. Man, you got to have another moment like that. We could smash mouth football this team because of the emotions that are involved. Lane Kiffin, big talking point. Definitely going to be not necessarily nervous, but everyone in that stadium is going to know the team that walks out of there, the victor, is more than likely going to be in the SEC title, more than likely going to be the SEC West champs. Probably going to punch their ticket to a college football playoff too. That's a very early game, but like you said, it's probably the toughest game that they got all year.
And I can't wait to see how Blake is going to utilize Harold Perkins. You know, a lot of the fans was griping about how Matt House used Harold Perkins. You know, you had a lot of packages where he was dropping in coverage and wasn't using his ability to rush the passer like they did his freshman year where he was terrorizing the quarterback. I think you're going to see this year Blake use him all over. Edge rusher, Mike linebacker, decoy blitzes, just a lot of different things he's going to have Harold doing to be able to impact the game. And I think Blake is going to show why they went out and got him as the defensive coordinator. I think he's going to make that defense better and put Harold Perkins as one of the best linebackers in the country.
I agree. Harold Perkins is another athlete that I think LSU has right now that is going to have a huge season because he's in that big draft year. He's in a year where a lot of people were just wondering, like, man, what happened? Like, what's going on? Like you said, the scheme is so weird. Plus, when they were talking about putting him inside, and Blake Baker was kind of just like not necessarily telling everybody what they're going to do because this is smokescreen city. It had some weird reactions as well. I think, though, the thing with Harold Perkins and the thing that the fans got to realize is that the development, like, you got to be able to develop this guy. You got to be able to put him in a situation where, you know, like if not necessarily Greg Penn or a linebacker goes down, he can fill that role, but he can help whoever is in that role. Mm-hmm. He could be supplemental. He could be the coach on the field. He could be your captain, your guy. He's your, you know, so to speak, the headset you got on the field. Like, he is another coach. And I think on that defense, when you look at the knowledge and when you look at the experience, you really got 2, maybe 3 guys that could do that. It's going to be him, it's going to be Major Burns, and it potentially could be Sage Ryan. But I think Harold fits that role best out of all of them just because he's so respectable.
Right.
He's very prominent. He's got a huge brand, and then everybody around him not necessarily wants to be in that situation, but it's like this is the guy that probably has the most approved in this year, and he's going to more than likely have the most success, I think, just because it's like he's in the fire. He's got the lights shining on him right now, and I think he's the type of guy to perform. I don't think he's going to coward from him. I don't think that he's going to melt under the lights. I don't think that they're going to crack him with the pressure. I think he's going to rise to it. I think he's going to more than likely develop into a first-round pick. I don't understand how Harold Perkins would ever slip to a second round. NFL draft is weird, though. We just had the pro day. NFL draft has, talking about smoke screens, talking about weirdness. We've seen Jaden Daniels' elbow get photoshopped. What do you think about the NFL pro day? What do you think about the NFL draft? How are you feeling about the Jaden Daniels stock, Malik Neighbors stock, anybody's stock for that matter? What jumped out to you at pro day? How are you feeling about it?
I think Jaden Daniels did a good job of how he went about the whole combine and pro day. You know, he didn't measure in. He didn't test for the combine, but for pro day. He didn't test, but he weighed in. He weighed in at 210, I think. And it was very strategic. I think he was still in the process of trying to gain weight. You didn't want to weigh in at anything under 200 pounds because, you know, the NFL is always trying to find a reason to not pick you high in the draft.
Yeah.
And you know, some of the things that some of the scouts were saying was how he's going to be able to take an impact hit under 200 pounds in the NFL. So him weighing in at 210, I thought that was smart to get his, I think that gave him a month to get his weight up by the time he weighed in for the pro day at 210, and he looked phenomenal throwing the ball. I mean, the ball was coming off his hand live on all 32 teams. You could tell they was very impressed with his showing. Brian Thomas looked great, and especially, you know, in the combine running that 4.3, 30-inch vert. I was surprised that Malik had a higher vertical than Brian Thomas. When I saw the 42-inch, I was like, wow. Wow. You know, yeah, some people had Malik clocked at a 4.2. Yeah, some other scouts had him at a 4.3. Whether it was 4.2 or 4.3, he was moving. He was moving. He clearly showed that what you saw on film, he can show it in the 40-yard dash. Top 5 pick. I think he's going number 4 to the Cardinals. It's going to be a marriage between him and Kyler Murray. If he gets past 4, I would be very, very shocked. The whole notion of Marvin Harrison being the wide receiver, being the first wide receiver taken in this draft is bull. It's BS to me, man.
Thank you.
I just think that the fact that I tweeted this, the fact that Marvin Harrison did not test at the combine, did not test at pro day, you clearly got to give Malik the edge on him, right? You know, you want to talk about production? He had more production than Marvin Harrison. If you look at the film, Marvin Harrison is a really good player. Please don't take out of context what I'm saying. Really good player. He's going to be a really good pro. But if you put on the film, if you tell me Marvin Harrison's film looks better than Malik Neighbors, I gotta really question your evaluation and how you process things from a talent standpoint. Some of the things Malik did this year, man, was phenomenal. Like some of the things he did this year, not too many receivers in the NFL can do. And that's just the fact of the matter of it, right? And the mentality. I think that is another trait that he has that separates him from every receiver in his draft. His mentality, his mindset, when the ball's in his hand, when he's running routes, he is just a different person. It's almost like once he get in that rectangle, he turns a switch on and it's like, it's Leak versus Malik. You know what I'm saying? Like that alter ego kind of thing he has going. And I think that's going to carry him in the NFL. And you see with all the great receivers. Look at DK Metcalf. Look at Justin Jefferson. Look at Jamar. Like all these top receivers have that edge to themselves. And he has it. And I can't wait to see him and Brian Thomas be the next 2 receivers out of LSU to be first-round picks. Before the combine, you know, they said Brian Thomas going middle of the second, early second. Well, I think that ship is sailed. No way he gets out of the first round after what he did at that pro day. That kind of size, running like that, especially after the year he had, he led the nation in touchdowns, right, as a receiver. So I'm actually hoping the Saints pick him at 14.
That would be so awesome.
Yeah, I'm hoping that, you know, Micah Thomas no longer with the Saints. Go ahead and pick Brian Thomas and let him come in and fill that void and put him next to Chris Olave and Shaheed, man. I would love to see them 3 receivers in black and gold going forward.
Could you imagine, this is so crazy, but could you imagine the money Saints fans could save if they gave him number 13? Still Thomas.
I didn't think about that.
I just thought about that.
I didn't think about that.
You save some money. Everybody can keep that 1-3. It's only one number down.
Good point.
I like this about Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, and I'll throw Chris Hilton into this as well. And hell, I'll throw Jack Besh into it. Shout out Bobby. All in the same recruiting class. Mm-hmm. All of those guys, Cortez Hankton just saw a lot in, and they took a huge shot getting all of them in there. And look at how their careers have turned out. I feel like Jack Besh is in a situation where it's a little rough because he was put in a role he wasn't comfortable with. A lot of people criticized him, and he had to go fight for some reps. Business decision, I respect it, and it's definitely, you know, all a part of the process, especially in today's era of college football. Now let's look at, you know, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors, superstars, turned into similar duo to like J. Jet and Jamar. Like we're talking about Malik's pro day numbers and all that. identical to Jamar Chase.
Right.
Look just like Jamar Chase. I couldn't see a reality where Malik doesn't transition successfully at all. I think Brian Thomas is in another role where it's like the fact that they produced those numbers at the same time, simultaneously, not taking reps from each other, not complaining, not being a little ego-filled wide receiver like people say they are. Like a lot of people say wide receivers are divas. Not them, but just wide receivers in general. I want the ball, I want the ball, I want the ball. Those two guys came together and created one of the most explosive offenses, not only at LSU, but that I've seen ever in football. So I think that type of mindset in those two guys has to be taken into account. All the comments I see on my videos are like, oh, well, Marvin didn't have this quarterback. Marvin didn't have Jaden Daniels, this, that, the other, the third. I think that isn't as big of an argument as people think it is. Because if they didn't, like let's say Jaden Daniels didn't have a Heisman season, I feel like it's going to kind of speak, and it could be wrong, but it's going to kind of speak levels to the team he had around him. Everyone's going to use that crutch. Oh, well, he didn't have the talent. He didn't have the talent. He didn't have the talent. Maybe Jaden Daniels is in a Heisman position because of the talent around him. The fact that Malik Neighbors can catch any damn ball thrown. The fact that Brian Thomas can go over any defensive back. The fact that you can't double, because if you double, it's over with. One's going to be open.
And people forget that Malik caught for 1,000 yards last year.
He's got the most yards total.
When Jaden Daniels wasn't even being looked at as a draft pick.
Exactly.
So that in a nutshell should tell people how good Malik Neighbors is. You caught for 1,000 yards when Jaden Daniels was mediocre. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to put the film on and watch and say, all right, this dude the best receiver in the country. He's the best receiver in the draft.
And look at the.
And that's not to say that Marvin Harrison's not going to have a good career. That's not to say Marvin Harrison won't be a really good pro. He's just not better than Malik Neighbors.
Exactly. Like when you're in a situation where you're picking the best, the very best. This is like such a similar situation to Florida State and Alabama last year in the college football playoff. Everyone's like, oh, Florida State went undefeated, this, that, and other. Alabama was probably the fourth best team in that season. They deserve to be able to crack in. They deserve to be able to have their respect, yada, yada, yada. This is a very similar situation. Both teams, fantastic. Both players, fantastic. But when you're a team and you're a GM and you're sitting there in the war room on draft day with the phone in your hand, your career is on the line. You probably messed this pick up over if you're Arizona. If you're Los Angeles, if you're whoever. This is a pivotal move for all these franchises that, quite frankly, pick at the top of the draft every single year. If you mess this up and you do the safe choice and you do the thing that's going to make everybody regret not getting someone like Malik Neighbors, a generational talent who's going to pop off and continuously perform, I think they're going to keep a lot of people up at night.
And I'm going to tell you something else that people don't think about when you talk about the NFL draft and what these NFL teams and these front offices are looking at. Man, they looking at who's going to put butts in the seats. Malik Neighbors is going to be box office. People are going to want to see him come and score touchdowns, dance in the end zone, dance after he get a first down, be passionate on the sideline, coming in the game with the drip on.
Yep.
They want to see all of that. And that's what he's going to bring to your stadium every Sunday. And people are going to pay big money to see it. You're not getting that from Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison is more mild-mannered. He's going to chill. He really ain't going to celebrate too much. And there's nothing wrong with that. To each his own. Yeah. But I know what's going to put butts in the seats. Malik Neighbors, box office. It's just that simple.
And you can't take a Biletnikoff Award from a man by a singular vote and expect him to not come into the NFL with a burning desire to show everybody they were wrong. Like he just keeps saying, bet, keep me out of here. What'd he say? Either keep overthinking me or like keep me in the back of your head, something like that. He was pretty much just saying, oh, keep overlooking me, something like that. I don't know, but he was making a tweet the other day after the pro day, like, no, don't come join the hype train now. Like everybody wanted to forget, and everybody was like, oh, Malik Neighbors this, that, second, third, whatever the hell. Oh, but people were even saying Rome was a better draft prospect than him, Rome Odunze from Washington.
Well, they just were saying that because of his size.
Yeah.
They're saying that because of his size. Sometimes, people get caught up with the measurables, and I get it for certain positions. At the receiver position, size to me doesn't matter as much as it does for offensive linemen or defensive linemen. Malik Neighbors, he plays like he's 6'4", right? The ball in the air, I don't care who he going against. He jumping, as you can see with the 42-inch vertical, he jumping in the air, and he hanging in the air, and he's snatching it out the air. So you telling me he's 6 foot versus an Nduzi who is 6'3", I don't give a damn about none of that. I'm watching his tape and he's jumping and snatching the ball out the air at his highest point. And that's what you look for when you got a receiver that might not have the 6'3" size. And he's shown that time after time since he's been at LSU.
Another thing, you said the size, defensive lineman, offensive lineman. You know, we've seen a lot of good defensive talent. And my thing when I was watching the pro day and what I was saying during my coverage was, this is a perfect moment for these guys to show their skill set and to just show like, hey, let's look at Mekhi Wingo, Omar Speights, Mason Smith. All of these guys, in my opinion, did their due diligence and kind of not necessarily wrote the wrongs of last year, but like the scouts got to see, okay, these are diamonds in the rough. These are guys that I could take a shot on, that I could take a chance with. Like, let's take Mason, for example. Longest D lineman wingspan. Pretty much the biggest defensive lineman that anybody could pick. 6'5", 308 pounds, I think they had him at the pro day. People are talking about the 21 reps of bench compared to 28 with Mekhi, compared to 30 with Omar. Wingspan has to be taken into account with that, and I feel like that's not going to be the nail in the coffin for a defensive line prospect that's that big, that fast, that smart. Mekhi Wingo also. People are like, well, he's kind of undersized, this, that, and the other. Dude played through injury for months. Not a major injury, but a very aggravating injury, something that would make a lot of people take a back seat and like, hey, no, I'm done. Mekhi Wingo, number 18, obviously speaks volumes of his character. Omar Speights, though, that dude came out looking like a Greek god. Oh, my God, 6% body fat or something, 8% maybe. Dude
his body is incredible.
All over the place, very strong. I think that is someone who last year didn't necessarily get, like, overlooked, but I think a lot of people learned a lot about LSU's defense in the scouting world, in the talent, prospect world. I feel like... man, I'm not going to say the coaching or, the hard moments or just the unforeseen circumstances ruined it, but that room had so much potential, whether it be defensive linemen, DBs, linebackers. That room was not horrible. I don't think it's 100% on the players. Now, can some players take into account some things, and can they have done, or should they have done some things differently? Now, never know. More than likely, there's always going to be different pieces of fault in these type of things, but I just feel like I wouldn't beat up on these defensive guys. I wouldn't think that they're going to have a horrible NFL career just because of the recency bias that y'all got. I think the development is going to be very, very, very key here. I think that you got to take the shot, look at the tape, like we were saying, just scout the talent.
Right.
Be honest. Don't be like, well, look at this. If we were going off of records, wins, losses, and if you hit, the hype mark off of every draft prospect, how many of them wouldn't be able to get drafted where they are?
Right.
It's everybody. I mean, there's a lot. You can nitpick and find something wrong with every single NFL draft prospect. And then if you can't nitpick and find something wrong, they're going to make something fake about you. They're going to do the CJ Stroud. He's the lowest IQ. He performed so well or he's so horrible, whatever, in the IQ test last year. Look at him all season. He is probably the best young quarterback that I've seen in the last 2-3 years. I mean, besides Joe Burrow with the 2-year Super Bowl run. But CJ Stroud... very comparable to Jaden Daniels for me. I think Jaden Daniels will probably be the second quarterback taken off the board. I don't know why Drake May would slide in, but what do you think about that? Because that's another hot button issue or hot button topic.
I think Drake May going to Washington could make a little more sense than Jaden. And the only reason I say that is because Jaden is used to playing on the West Coast, playing in the South. He's not used to playing in cold weather. And, it's kind of a reason why I feel like Caleb Williams going to Chicago might not be ideal. I don't know what Jaden measured in with his hands. All that matters in football, especially at the quarterback position. Because you're playing in cold weather and your hands not that big, that's going to be an issue at some point throughout the season when you get to November and December. So I do think Jaden Daniels is the second best quarterback in this draft. Caleb Daniels, from a talent standpoint, I think he's undeniable. From a maturity standpoint, from a pro-like mindset, I would take Jaden, though. I would take Jaden. I think Jaden is more pro-ready from a mental standpoint, in my opinion, than Caleb. But I think Caleb has all the physical tools and traits that you look for and say, man, this dude might be the next Pat Mahomes, right? And just different reports I've been hearing about Caleb Williams with his, how he's handled this whole draft process. He had some people that kind of was a little leery on, his maturity level and things like that. Who knows how true those things is? We'll see. But I know what I've seen from Jaden since he's been at LSU. Always been even killed, very mature, don't get rattled. And I've seen how he took an average season and turned it into an outstanding season in year 2 at LSU. And so you can't deny that athleticism, the speed, and with the way the NFL is with these DNs and linebackers running 4-3s and 4-4s now, you need a quarterback like that can get out the pocket, make plays with his legs, and put pressure on defensive coordinators that have the game plan for. And he's gotten so much better as a passer from his first year at LSU to this year, and that makes me think that he's only going to continue to get better, right? And depending on where he goes, I could see Jaden Daniels having a CJ Stroud type rookie year, right? I'm just a little leery of him going somewhere in the cold, right? So if he can go somewhere, even New England talking about picking him, right? Cold weather. I don't know if that's ideal for Jaden. I'm sure he'll go anywhere a team picks him, but I just would like to see him somewhere where it's not cold weather and where it could put him in a situation, man, to be in a more of a comfortable setting because he's a Cali guy from the West Coast and is not used to that cold weather. But I think Jaden, man, I think he's the most pro-ready mentally in the draft, like I said. But from a talent standpoint, I think Caleb has a little more generational talent traits, if you will, coming into this draft.
Yeah, Caleb Williams is very explosive and very expressive. So he's got that double-edged side where we were kind of talking about Malik Neighbors, like putting butts in seats. Like I could kind of see them marking him in that area. And the Commanders, though, the moves they made, like getting Austin Eckler, of course they have Scary Terry. I love to see Jaden in that scheme. But then let's talk about Chicago. They got DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen. Like the first 2 teams, Chicago, Washington, they're not in a spot where I think that they're going to be like 2-3 win teams next year.
Right.
They're not horrible. They're both pretty decent spots for rookie quarterbacks comparatively. Like, let's look at guys like Zach Wilson going to the Jets. That's rough. These 2 spots, they can make it work. They can definitely both have very, very good years. I think Drake May could even have a potential good year as well. I thought all their pro days were very decent. A lot of people were worried about Jaden Daniels' pro day. I don't know why, but you always find like something wrong with that.
Throwing the ball wise, he looked incredible.
He was commanding the whole workout too. He looked like a coach.
He looked good. He looked good to me. I know people want to see him test for what? Put the film on.
And not only there's nothing that could help him get to the first pick, and he's probably going to be locked at second or third, like a 4.40 or whatever. It's just like, all right, well, we expected it. It's more risk than it is reward with that. It's not worth it at all. Like you said, the draft and NFL teams are going to find any reason to not pick you. That could have been a major one. The weight, major one. I didn't even consider that, having to bulk up and then potentially slow down and like just that whole dilemma. That's more than likely.
Yeah, it made sense for him not to win at the combine, man. He probably wasn't at that 200-pound mark, because I'm more than sure he was under 200 pounds throughout the season at LSU this year.
Yeah.
So you don't let him win. Let's put these pounds on him. Then when pro day come around, let him win. Let these teams see he had 210, and I guarantee he's probably gonna lose that 10 to 12 pounds and get back to his normal weight, which is around like the 190-ish mark. Right. I just hope that doesn't hurt him if he gets hit in the NFL and it causes some type of injury or something. Because that's the only thing the scouts was worried about when he said something about his weight.
And he needs to
slide
down, please.
Slide.
Oh Lord, someone, Jay Johnson, help a fellow LSU legend out.
Slide.
Get him on a dime.
He took too many hard hits this past season and the year before.
Like the Mississippi State one looked like a Looney Tunes shot. The Alabama one, nuts. Dirty hit, but nuts.
Ole Miss.
If Jaden,
he got hit hard against Ole Miss too.
If he didn't go get down on a player like a DeMario Davis, anybody, bro, a hard hitting edge, Max Crosby, anybody. If he doesn't get down and he gets his bell rung,
good night.
Yeah, it's a different beast in the NFL. These guys are bigger, faster, probably a lot stronger. They're going to be in tune, and they're going to be waiting to give you your welcome to the NFL moment.
Yeah.
I hope he can get down. I hope. Anything else you want to talk about before we end this off? What you got in your mind by LSU, football, sports, anything, life, whatever?
Man, I'm very optimistic about this upcoming season from what I saw at practice today, man. I was very, very impressed. Like I said, especially from the defensive side of the ball, man. I can't wait to see if they're going to add a couple more guys out of the portal going into that fall camp. If I had to guess what positions they're going to try to fill in that portal going into fall camp, it probably will be at defensive line. I think D tackle, they don't have enough depth there, and they don't have enough size. I know they got the kid from Wisconsin that's supposed to be coming. He just committed a few days ago, but I think they need to get probably maybe another D tackle to go along with him and maybe another edge rusher. And I think they'll be what they need to be. I think offensively, man, I think they have everything they need, man. Offensive line set, running back set. Hopefully everything works out with Trey Holly and he can get back into the fold. Then you add Caden Durham to that. Now you got a four-headed monster with Josh Williams and Caleb Jackson, right? The receivers, I think Chris Hilton and Karen Lacey, Aaron Anderson, 1, 2, 3, Mason Taylor, pimped in there a little bit. I'm not saying they're gonna put up the same amount of numbers they did this past season, but I think it'll be somewhat close.
I agree. I think from what I've seen from the spring practices and just the whole overall vibe and energy that you get going to one of those events, and they had one of them where they let us watch the entire one. We only been getting like 20 minutes in the beginning, so I've been trying to like hurry up and get it all in while I can. But man, I think they're definitely on the right track. Soon we should do a LSU 2024 prediction video. We should break down the whole schedule.
I'm with it.
Y'all stay on the lookout for that. I'm gonna put his links to G Sports social medias, his personal social medias, Fanview podcast. Y'all make sure to check that out. He's got some big things coming. Y'all stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. We got some more spring football practice coming. By the way, April 13th, spring game. Y'all get ready. We get to see LSU in action. They get the pads on, purple and gold, back in Tiger Stadium. Don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.